Lamed Alf to Lamed Zayin of Sanhedrin. We'll finish off the parak Zeborer, and we'll get to the next parak. These discuss witnesses, and then we discuss the composition of the Bezdin and the proceedings during the actual court case. So this is Daf Lamed Alf, which is finishing, as I said, the parak Zeborer. It talks about three main topics. Again, this slide text is mainly quoted from Zichru, copied and pasted. One thing which is not in here, which is finishing up from last week, it was Shul Makarcha, and focusing on his shita, which leads to witnesses which contradict each other. That's why I'm starting from Shul Makarcha. He talks about Eidim which contradict each other somewhat and somewhat fit together. And then the Gemara goes into witnesses which contradict each other on peripheral or central detail. And then bring evidence after the deadline, and then forcing another Baldim to go to a different court. And these are the potential cases. Hodah Chava, Hodah Chodah, Chava. And again to Rishon Gamliel. Okay. So Rishon Makarcha has an opinion that if you have, well, everyone says if you have Hodah admission after a loan, so this guy is testifying about the loan, this guy is testifying about the admission, that's fine, because this Yom Sheni Hodah was admitting about this transaction. Okay, right, may have been right. Also, if you have two Hodahs in a row, so most people, except for one sheet in the Gemara, would say that it also fits together because it could be talking about the same $100. Yom Rishon, there was a Hodah from this guy. Yom Sheni, there was a Hodah in front of this guy, and now they both came together to the Bezdin. It could fit together. What most people, except for Yeshua Makarcha, for most Pshatim him, would say is not good is if they're testifying on a loan on Sunday from Yom Rishon, and then this one's testifying on a loan on Monday. So they're testifying about two different things. So this is the most extreme at Yeshua Makarcha. We know they're for sure talking about two different things, right? It's not like if they're saying testifying about the same piece of karka, which we had last week. They're testifying about two different events. But bottom line, in both of them, this lova owes the malva $100, or whatever's in the bag here. So Rishon Makarcha, then Hadoi's Pshat Rishon Makarcha would say that's good. See the Gemara. So this is just a lot of lamed on base. Nadoi army, that's what we said before. Let's make it bigger. Nice and big. Nadoi army. Oh, that shows. Yeah. So Nadoi, you say Bein Hodah Achar Hodah, which we had. Bein Hodah Achar Hava, which is fine. Bein Hava Achar Hava, right? One loan, like we just had a picture of, was for sure two different loans. One on Sunday, one on Monday. Bein Hava Achar Hodah, which is also if Sunday the guy admitted, and then Achar that on Monday there was a loan. For sure, they're also talking about two different loans. Let's start. So Rishon Makarcha has that shita. Now the question is, let's say they testify about differing contradictory edus in the bedikas, right? In the beginning of the next paragraph, we're going to talk about a lot about Drisha Chakira, but there's also bedikas. What was the whole situation? So either they could say one could say the money was, or that's not so bad because you're not really paying attention to what called the bag was. That's what Rava says. Rava that Rabbi Yehuda says edus macheres zuzu b'digos ksher b'din novos. If there's some contradiction in the b'dikos, in the peripheral facts, that's fine. So Rava says it's only about the money bag. But let's say one said it was a black coin and one said it was a white coin, and one says it was 200 shekel bill, and one said it was two 100 shekel bills. So they're for sure contradicting each other, right? Then, right, they would if they were watching a transaction, they would have noticed it, right? Na'adoi say Na'adoi are more extreme, which we were just referencing before, right? Same Na'adoi. This is Na'adoi over here, and now on Lamed Alf, this is Na'adoi. Even if one says the coins were black. The coin was black, and one says the coin is white, then they could be mistayef like a shul mekach. And this is related to the machlokas about two about machlokas what's pshat and machlokas b'sham beis hillel if there's two pairs of edim, right? One says this is even worse. One says 200, one says 100, right? So according to Shimon Gamliel, everyone agrees if there's two pairs of edim, one says 200, one says 100, then the guy owes at least 100. And he says they disagree by one pair of edim, right? They argue if there's only one pair, then you don't have two, you don't have edus on the same thing, right? So Rav Shimon holds that Beis Hillel holds that even if there's one pair of edim and one says 200, one says 100, it would still be good. So that's the most extreme. It's less extreme if you have two witnesses on 200, two witnesses on 100. So you say yesh b'chal Messiah man. At least the guy owes 100. They're talking about the same event, right? According to Shimon Gamliel, Beis Hillel holds even if there's one aid saying 200, one saying 100, they're mamish contradict each other, which sounds like even worse than the black coin and the white coin. Then it's fine. At least the guy, obviously, the guy doesn't know 200, the guy knows 100.
What's up by doing numbers? 180 is fine, so I would put two eight together.
180 is fine.
180.
No, 1 is fine. I think. And then Gemara relates it to Chava Shal Yaim, Chava Shal Shem, which this is for sure. You know, if 200 and 100 is bad, one says the jug was wine and one says the jug was oil, for sure it is contradictory. And the Gemara basically says the only place, the only way Rav Shimon will say this good is if they're talking about the value of the barrel. No one in the right mind would say that if one guy said 1/8 says 8 is on Chavav Shayin, 1/8 says on Chavav Shaman, that somebody can put two of those together, just totally two totally different things. So no one will be that extreme. But if 1/8 says it was 200, 1/8 says it was 100, then you can be mistaken. Going back for a second because it's interesting Rashi, you're not supposed to say which judges voted which way. And there was a Talmud that there was a rumor about him that he was Goli Mosa, and Rashi says that he said Lashon Hara because he revealed a secret. So revealing a secret, Rashi says is Dibra Lashon Hara. I think Rashi brought it on the Mishnah before also. Fine. So let's say they gave him next Mishnah. If they gave him a deadline, said bring all your testimony, it has to be postmarked in 30 days, right? And then the guy comes day 31, and the post office is closed, and he's like, I have Adis, right? So Shmuel says, look, he has Adis. We didn't get the post office, so what? He, accept the testimony. And they're about to say no. And then the next case, which this is called Raya Achrona, this is the famous case where the halacha is not like Rav Shimon Gamliel. This is Raya Achrona. You have the Bezdin over here, and the guy talks Hebrew. He says, "Lo ma'amin ech shechachti sheish li'asam." Right? So, he said the words, "I don't have a raya, ain't raya," and then he brings the other raya. So Rav Shmuel holds still he could bring a raya, and we say that halacha is not like him. There's a very famous statement. So this raya achron was the second case of raya in the Mishnah. Yeah, he's very suspicious. If they're about to say the word, you're guilty, and all of a sudden, the last second, right? He pulls out, right, or like he has a glove that doesn't, at the last second, But now the two exceptions obviously is the Gemara says if there's kids, then they don't know about the father's affairs, and the father passed away. Then they're allowed to say we just discovered it, or other people are allowed to discover it because how do they know what's in their father's papers? Also, if a woman was entrusted with the documents, the Gemara goes into a few lines of discussion about this. If she was in charge of watching the documents, do we trust her to say this document was paid? Right, that's called a shlish. Is a shlish mehemen or not? There's different opinions of that. But the assumption is if you trust her to watch your documents, you're going to trust her not to say it was paid. You're obviously the malva. You want to hold on. You need somewhere safe to hold on to your documents, so you're trusting her not to pull any shtick. Fine. Now, the last thing in the parak is, could you force him to go to a better bezdin? You have your local bezdin in your local city, and you say, I don't like these guys. I want to go to Lakewood. There's big or Eretz Yisrael, right? Like there's bigger Talmid Chacham there. Let's schlep over there. So basically, the Gemara comes out down here that the lova cannot say that because Eved lova lishmalva. The lova is subservient to the malva somewhat, but the malva could, in fact, say I want to go to the other bezdin. The Gemara points out sometimes the travel costs us so much. You want to schlep all the way from here to there, to very Tzipor, whatever. But the Malva seems to have the right, and if he doesn't, he can say, which is a famous line these days, "Me'ezetam dantuni," which I know practically a lot of people discuss. If you could force the bezdin to say why they passed what they did, so the Gemara is just saying one svara, I guess over here. If you're going to force him to be here, he could say, "Okay, I'll deal with this bezdin," but you have to write down exactly. You can't just write down the psak. You have to write what your reasons were, and then I'm going to go and bring it to the Makom Havad, to Lakewood or to Eretz Yisrael. And then I'll see if they argue with you or not, just to get my $20 back. Never, right? Fine, and that is the end of Zebor. Fine. So we were talking about the differences basically between drishas, between the Dini Mamas and the Fashas. So let's see. There's the difference between the Mamas and Fashas. That was not the full form that I've typed in. Drish v'chakira rabbinically waived for monetary cases shel tonal. Fine. Monetary case where we do have drish v'chakira, that we'll see. Some cases we do even for money drish v'chakira. Tzedek tidov. There's several pshatim in that pasuk. And what you say to open your din in the fashas case is chus. So just to summarize the mission, instead of reading it, there's 10 differences. There's actually, the first one is the same. So the Gemara later on adds on number 10, but whatever. You do Drish V'chakir according to the Mishnah, even by Dinei Mamnas. Right, so that's the reason the Gemara says in the second, that you don't do Drish V'chakir by Dinei Mamnas. Right.
Why? What's the $10? You should help people do loans because
right. So you could really argue both svaras, but the reason the Gemara says the reason that you do not want is because if there's a minor discrepancy, let's say Mana Shachar Mana Lavan, which will come out in the B'dikas, Rish Chakir, whatever, let's say it's the same, then the guy's not going to have his loan. Those, if you're going to like...
He's the boxer.
Right. The guy who's making the loan says, if you're going to be so tough, you're going to throw out my document like it's a get or something, and it's one name spelled wrong. I lend him $10,000. I want my $10,000 back. Right. So that's just okay. I mean, the other way is obviously you don't want a kangaroo court. That's why you want to have Jewish fakir, so people don't pull. So people don't pull straws out of just and throw them on the other guy. All right, that's a discussion. 3 dayanim or 23 dayanim. The fashas, of course, need 23 dayanim. Posel mafil chova. You could start whichever side. In the fashas, of course, your posel is a chus, which we'll say in a minute. You start out discussing the good side. And this we've had before. By the imamnas, the majority could be 1. By the fashas, then the majority has to be 2. And by mamas, then you could bring the bezdin back into session if you if you see reason to make him guilty. But in the fashos, the Gemara brings a pasuk. Once you decide it, That's it. Right. You can't. Right. Tzaddik al taruk. If the guy came out innocent, you let him go. You know, the nucky is one thing, and tzaddik al taruk. Hamlamed zchus mlamed chova. By mumnus, you could the one dying could switch off, but nefashos, we'll see what this means. Hamlamed zchus em mlamed chova. Right? If you are saying a reason for zchus, then you can't argue. You can't like keep arguing both sides. You know. You got to pick a side, but by voting you could. When you come to vote, you can actually change your vote. Done biyom gom balayla. So all court cases have to start during the day, but the moments you can finish by night. Done biyom gom bayom. The fashos, then you have to finish in the day. And then this next one is that moments you could do the same day, just small claim sport in and out. The fashos you can only do it on the next day. Which is why you can't. Yeah, you have everyone has to sleep on it. And my mom's not skilled in Agado. We're going to see on Lamed Zayin, basically today's daf, basically, and a little Lamafov, the way they sat in the semicircle. So you can start from the biggest one, which I believe is in the middle, or that's his picture. I didn't see indication said in the Gemara that the big guy was in the middle. Yeah, they said that. I don't know. I missed it. I know the picture says the goggles in the middle. So the picture is a fair picture.
I remember learning that you restart and goes all the way around.
I thought so. I thought it goes in order.
When?
Well, no. Here, what the mission is saying, you start with the gadol, but in mamas, and the fashas that you start from the side.
You gotta alternate.
Right. Yeah, depending on how they're arranged. If the gadol's in the middle, which sort of makes sense visually, then you start from one side and you go to the other side and work your way down to the middle. Anyone, the Gemara says one that includes is kosher for the imamas, and Hakok Shem Laden. The Nefashos were obviously very selective about who gets to be in the judgment. Yeah, that's peripheral point. Fine. Right. So first, the Gemara's point, we're trying to figure out if there's rishus or chakiras by money. So the one thing is, if we're so exact and we interrogate them and cross-examine them, how could you ever have a shtar b'ocher? Shtar with the wrong date. At least they have to get the date right. We have all these cases with a shtar b'ocher, shtar muktam, where you write by before and let it later. Right, that's these two slides, which it is right. Right, the shtar b'ocher, the shtar Zech Nisan. It happened over here. So this guy, he's not able to collect. The mom was not able to collect from. Or shtar muktam, the shtar says Ech B'Shvat, so the mom is going to collect from this fellow. Right. Fine. So basically, the Gemara is saying, how could you ever dream of having such a case if we're going to go after every last detail, right? In the end, I think even by the Gemara earlier in the Maseches said, we try to be exact with the dates. Anyway, if you don't know what the date was, you write that. But that's the reason you should not, to say that there are not drishos or chakiras, the fact that there's something called the shtar b'ocher. And like we said, the reason that we don't say so as not to lock the door before the people lending money, that they have a chance that they'll be able to collect. Obviously, there's another tzad, like you were saying, like, you don't want to make it a reckless process.
The Malva has what to lose.
The Malva has what to lose by Jewish v'chakir. What do you mean? Because they're going to throw out a good shtar.
Either the shtar or whatever the
right.
Jewish v'chakira is the goal is to confirm that the loan was given.
Right.
If you require that to confirm it, then by default the Malva has what to lose.
Right. Right.
And
if
he's has nothing to lose.
Right. The Lova has what to lose the other way. That he's not going to. Right. I guess.
The Lova's holding the money.
Right.
But he's not coming to extract it from the lender.
Right. I hear. Now, then the problem is there's a. One second. There are other cases which say, I think it's the Brisa that says, that there are no Drishim Chakiris by mom, which was what we would think. And we say over here, we're talking about Dinei Knossos. The reason that there are Drishim Chakiris is not involving lending and borrowing. Or you could say, this is very interesting, that when do we do the Drishim Chakiris? When we know that there's something fishy going on here. So, we want to expose the liar because we see something's fishy. We can't pinpoint it. So we bring him in and cross-examine him, interrogate him. Then we'll find out that he's lying. Now, so there's a pasuk tzedek. So we said there's a pasuk with tzedek tishba misecha and tzedek tirdov. So one's the meruma. So if, like we said, if it's someone's a dishonest over here, that tzedek tirdov, you would, so to speak, be rodek him. You would make a lot of dish of chakiras. And the other pshat inside of tzedek tirdov was sometimes do pshara. Rashi says tzaddik din shalcha v'tzaddik pshara shalcha l'fi ro'os yenecha lo tidv masecha yos mechaver. That there are times when a compromise, a pshara, which I guess is a compromise, will be called for. So according to the Dayan, obviously people have to agree to it. The Gemara goes into a big mush about two ships that are passing or trying to pass each other, and basically they could have a head-on collision, or two people driving a bus on the side of the cliff. And if they don't accommodate each other, then it's not going to work out well for anybody. Another pshat is tzedek tirdov halacha bezdin yafa, which is funny because the last part we were talking about the guy who wants to go to a different bezdin. I guess in some sense it's the right thing to do. Halacha bezdin yafa, that you should be rodek, you should run to tzedek, meaning there's a good bezdin, but over there's a better bezdin. Take the extra mile and go to the better bezdin. Now, how do you open b'schus? So there's a variety of ways we open b'schus by din and the fashas. The first thing is sort of abrasive, which Gemara points out. Mi yemer kedek amrisu. Who says you're right? That's pretty, abrasive. And the Gemara says, "V'chasmilu." If you talk to people like that, they'll just clam up. They're not going to say anything. So then another pshat, Rabbi says, you bring them from one place to another, so they, they get famished. That if they had a plan of how to lie, they'll forget the plan. If they're lying, if they're not lying, then it'll just be a tircha for them. Another pshat is we ask the guy, "Do you have people to make them zomen?" Those the other guy is about to bring Adam that you killed someone. Do you have people who could make them Adam zomen? This is a cool thing you learned about Maseches Makkos called Adam zomen. You have any of those? And the Gemara doesn't like that really so much because you're encouraging the guy to find Adam zomen. So why are you encouraging him? Right at the start, you say, by the way, you know how to get out of this, like, find out that they were somewhere else, So that's not fair to anybody. And by Rava we say, lo kadat lo techta. Don't worry about it, we calm him down. That's what it means to be post mischus. When we say, don't worry if you have nothing to worry about, which we learn from Sota that we calm her down also. Or we say, you sort of make an announcement that anyone who knows the schos should come testify. Fine. Let's see what's next. So I have to go back to that. Where are we? So
now, people would be afraid to go and testify, especially when you say that you're looking to put the guy to death, and you'll die.
Right. That's why the Adam Zoma thing is very messy. Right. Because you just bring up the whole idea, Adam Zoma, like, why don't you find Zoman? You're going to die. He's going to die. Right. And it's not fair to the guy who was killed or the relatives. Okay, Lama Gimel. So we'll show a chart for a second.
What?
This is basically that Lama Gimel, this wonderful chart. Our Mishnah says that certain cases din could be choser, and b'chor says not choser. And these are all the terutzim. So din nefashos we only go back to schus, except if it's a davar shatzduk modem bo, right, which means beferish pasuk, and then we end up akom alav chovas schus, that everyone who could, in certain cases, whoever our calls coming to include, everyone can pipe up and say a svar for schus. Okay, and these, one second. Share. Fine. So we have a question from Chez B'chos Don Sadin Zikas Achayv Chiv Zakei Tim Sator Tir Sator Mash Also Osui V'Yishalmi Beso. Right. So we have that mission saying that Dine Mominus, what's done is done, and it cannot be retracted no matter what. So our mission says it could be retracted, and it can't be. And the mission over there is saying that locals can't be retracted. So there's four terutzim. Rabbi Welcher says our mission is talking about a mumcha. It's a little counterintuitive. If you have a mumcha and makes a mistake, it could go back. If he's not a mumcha, so you trusted him based on whatever narishkeit's in his head. It's a little counterintuitive. You think, a mumcha says something, it goes. But we're saying no. If it's a mumcha and he got it wrong, it goes back. If he is not a mumcha, part of your accepting not the mumcha was saying whatever he decides is fine, because he's not so experienced. So that's why you can't be chozel. Let's say he made a mistake, but you knew he's going to make a mistake because it's not a mumcha. So you accepted that. When you accept him as your dayan, you know he's going to make him. You know he might make a mistake, and you accepted it. Rav Nachman says that this, if the cases where there's someone greater than the dayanim, then they can reverse it. If there's no one greater, then it does not get reversed. This is a big thing. Tab by Mishnah, low tab Mishnah. Depends what the mistake was. If it was something that should have been obvious, then it goes back because it was just a blatant mistake. Low tab Mishnah, if like the Gemara ends up saying it's a machlokas in Gemara, we're not sure which way we go, then it's not choser because it's not so clear.
Right, that's definitely right much, because if the dayan is supposed to be knowledgeable,
right?
Forget about the mumcha aspect. He's
Right.
supposed to be knowledgeable. So he's a Torah Mishnah. I mean, it's the fairest. He should know that. So
Right. So he should know that's why it goes back.
Right. So why?
If he's not Tav Mishnah, well, that's a not to low Tav Mishnah means there's machlokas and no one decided machlokas.
There's no basis to say.
Right. Well, there is an accepted way which we decide machlokas, but it's not like today we have a Shulchan Aruch. Right. So we know it was a mistake. No, we can say it was a mistake. It's not like he's saying, he's arguing whether it was. Everyone admits now in hindsight it was a mistake, but it wasn't such an obvious mistake, so you keep it the way it was. And Rav Chisda says that it's two different cases also. Our Mishnah, he didn't take it from one to the other, and over there, then the dayan took it from one to the other, so it was sort of I don't know if Hefker Bez and Hefker, but he took it and he placed it in another person's hand. Fine. Let's just see sort of in the Gemara. Right, and here the 4 opinions. Mocha in the Mocha, Yesh Kol Menu, Chachamayan, Shikol Adas. Shikol Adas is a giant discussion. And Rav Chis said, not Tov Nasam Biyad, and Lo Not Tov Nasam Biyad. There is a more detailed discussion. There's 2 cases up here. And we're saying that the Brisa was where which way did we go? Okay. Yeah, the Brisa is where he took the biyad, where he took something physically from one to the other. That's why he did the action of taking. So his action, right? So it's like, so you can't. That's why it's not choser, because you can't take back his action. The question is if he's zika as a chayav, if he made someone innocent, there's no action involved. You just say you're innocent. His mistake was that he says innocent. But how do you take that one hand to the other, right? So as you're saying, in this case, this is the Bachoros Mishnah. So how does it work if you're taking things from one hand to the other? There's no Zika Zachai if you're saying you're innocent. You don't have to pay. So it could be that, huh? Right. So there's two truths. One to the Gemara's teretz is like you're saying that it's as if he took it, but then the teretz is sort of fuzzy because it will be saying that this brisa holds, the Mishnah Mechoros holds, it's as if you took it when you did that, and the our Mishnah does not hold as if you took it. Or you could say the guy had a mashkin. So if the guy had a mashkin, then he had to give back the mashkin. So then again, that would be natul biyad because he was taking the mashkin. So again, he did an action. Right, that's the next mashkin. And also the question is, Tiheres Atome, Timis Torah, how do you do that? Biyad. What does that mean? So Gemara says that he took a sheretz and he wanted to make sure they'll follow his psak. So like, hey, you don't believe me, it's Tomei? Now it's for sure Tomei because there's a sheretz. Or shiur ben pirosa, or if he was matar or something, he's like, I don't believe you're going to rely on my psak, so I'm mixing it, and now it's batal anyway. You don't have to worry about, if he's afraid they're not going to listen to his psak, that's tar. So here you see Rashi, not lo dain atzmo ve'irvin l'shar peus, right? So that's the ways he could do these psakim of Tumantaro hands-on. Right. So here's the psakim we mentioned before. How do you know if you bring him back? Because Naki al Tarog, obviously you don't kill guys innocent, but if he went out innocent and then you have a reason to make him guilty, so then you say Tzadik al Tarog. Once he went out innocent, then you don't change your mind because he's not a tzaddik, but he was a tzaddik in Bezdin, so then you don't change himself, right? Right. Now we said if you made a mistake in something that Tzedukim admit, which is the Chumash basically, Zil Kari Ravu, which means basically go look it up in the Chumash. So it's so blatant and so pasha that mistake always goes back. And we said Hakol Malam Den Schus Chova. So Edim also can speak their piece, which is interesting because they're here just as witnesses, right? They're not supposed to be giving us their opinions. We didn't ask for their opinion, but they're Jewish. They're saying they're not going to say to witnesses. They're going to tell Dayanim what they think. Then Malam Den Schus Malam Chova. So it could be the Edim. It could be one of the Talmidim. Talmidim, we're going to see are sitting in front of them in the 3 rows. So everyone says they could speak up. If you hold it's one of the Eidim, it's like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. Obviously, the reason you can't do is Mechsi can do so.
Not what they thought,
what?
The Eidim.
Yeah.
They actually saw, not what they think they saw.
Right. So it diminishes their credibility if there's like, this is what I saw. And by the way, I think that you should pass it like this. Like, on the other hand, obviously, if they have something to say, I'll let them say it. They're saving guys' life. Fine. Okay. What did I say? Yeah, moving right along. Okay, one Lamas can revert to be Malamachova to Gmaradin. Right. No, the only time it's funny because the Mishnah seems like you can't switch what you're saying. You really could switch it at the time when you press the button to vote. There's like buttons. Right. So
it's like the debate team. You're in the debate team, so you have to always focus on.
Right. I guess so. It's a very interesting thing because opinions fly. And if someone says something you don't like, but it's the wrong way, you can't argue unless it's in the same direction as you started,
Right. No,
it's complicated things. Like could be this, it could be the guy, I don't know what the halach will be. It could be you disagree with his reason, but even shita but you can't, it sounds like you can't say anything on the other side. Like you're saying, the debate team, I guess. You have to stick to one side. And-
Or you can
right.
say, oh, based on what we discussed, and based on what I've been listening to, I'm gonna make my own
Right.
decision, but right now I have to be on the side of. Cole
Right, so I
versus
guess,
on
I
the
guess
side
that's why, because we don't everyone to develop their side, once you pick your side.
Right.
Now two judges give the same reason based on different psukim are counted as one. The Gemara gets into this a lot. You can't give the same reason based on two psukim. Now machlokas,
One
if
is wrong.
me, I didn't really go through the Gemara that deeply, but you have like pages and pages of Gemara learning out this from here and this from there.
Yeah, you have different
So the Gemara, our Gemara does go through two cases, and the Gemara says, no, well, they're learning something a little different in both those cases, Kachim. Then the Machlokes, the imam was maybe concluded at night. And also capital cases, which is Din and Fashis, has to be during the day, right? Yeah, so that's this Gemara. Right, that's B'shas Ma'adim, Lamas L'Slam Chol. What we said, which is we tried to bring a few proofs. One proof is when one of the Talmidim die, but you know what he was saying. He said his opinion before he died, I guess. Then the Gemara says we take that opinion and we count that as a vote, even though I guess he didn't vote yet. The Gemara says, maybe he would have changed his mind. So that's a proof you can't change your mind. Tarot says no, that we assume he wouldn't have changed his mind.
Why? Because we just said before.
He's not allowed.
Changed his mind. He didn't make a spot, or was it debate?
Question in the debate, huh? Zika, I guess that means that's a good question. Right. I hear that. That's a good question. Yes, and then right, okay. Also then we try to bring proof of the two Sofrim. We're writing everyone's opinion. So why do you have to write the Vibizakin, the people who are saying innocent? Is it because they can't switch? Said no, we don't want two people to say the same thing from two different psukim. So we have to get their reason in detail. The Gemara goes through various cases where we said the same thing from two different psukim, and the Gemara says no, it's not true. Moving right along because there's exciting Daf Lamed Hey coming up. The Imam is not Biyom. So it says Shaftos Chol Eitz, and it says V'Haya Biyom Hachilas Bana. Right, two psukim. One is you could do it any time Chol Eitz, and one is V'Haya Biyom Hachilas Bana, which is on the daytime. So Yom Hachilas Din Laila L'Gmarden. By Mamanus you could finish at night, no problem. Another svara is that you compare it to Nagam, just like Nagam. Obviously, you have to see Nagam by day. Then also you have to see it by day. Fine. Din Nefashis, then you only do by night. So we learn it out from. I'm sorry, Din Nefashis can only be by day. Thank you. So that's from Bahokas Shemesh. That they had to hang them up, the people who were hanged, Neged Hashem, which means they had to do it in the daytime. And the word Vahoka we learned from Ritzbasaya, from the people that were hanging there, and that she watched over, and subsequently David married her, and David also learned how to do chesed from Ritzbasaya. But the Gemara brings it just to show what the word Hoka means to hang them up. Fine. Din was going by Yom. Din Nefashos, right? So this is about Din Nefashos. How do you know that you do Din Nefashos? And from these psukim that Yolim Bav Atam Ratzchim, that you sleep on in the night, and Asher Daim Shacham says Din by Din Nefashos, take your time, like you said, and sleep on it. The pasuk could also be talking about on a tinus, you can't delay giving food to the adim because everyone's hungry. So that's a side explanation of the pasuk. Why don't you judge on Friday? Because then they're going to be worried over Shabbos. You can't complete the judgment until Sunday because you can't judge on Shabbos and you can't do it Matzah Shabbos, which is at night, and you can't kill someone on Shabbos, so therefore you don't start on Friday because the guy's going to be worried the whole Shabbos. So that leads us into a new sugya of the fact that Bezin cannot kill someone on Shabbos, right? So here we go. Daf Lamed Hey, Dina Fashal cannot be judged on Erev Shabbos because the Halanas Din requirement. Because Halanas Din means you have to wait until the next day. Why bring a Meis Mitzvah is not to Shabbos, it's fact that should, and the source of pieces Bezin is not carried on Shabbos, like so. Whoops. Okay, here we go. I don't get these pictures, but I do, but no, because you can't see who's winning. No, it's very nice. They have an arm wrestle. It's beautiful, but it doesn't show them winning. Like it shows their arms are there. Like anyway, fine. 1 second. The guy on the left of is winning?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, amazing.
Now, 1 second. Avod now Rishon says Avoda should be docha. 1 second. Is the right order? Right. Avoda should be Meis Mitzvah should be docha should be docha Shabbos. Right? Why? Because Meis Mitzvah pushes away Avoda. The guy can't work the Avoda's Meis Mitzvah if there's a Meis Mitzvah. And Avoda is docha Shabbos.
Are they prohibiting that killing somebody is a Meis Mitzvah?
No. That's what we're going to say in a second. Ritzicha, which is Bezdin killing. That's next. Right? So we said, no, the Ritzicha is going to prove that that's not true. Ritzicha is Misas Bezdin. Because Misas Bezdin is Docha Avoda, which means if a guy is Mechuyev Misas Bezdin, we pull him off the Avoda, if he's a Kohen, but it's not Docha Shabbos. Right? So the fact that you Docha Avoda does not mean that you Docha Shabbos. Right? Misas Bezdin is Matzeach Avoda. We would say, but Misas Bezdin is not Docha Shabbos. Like this is the point we were saying. This is why we're bringing it in. But Misas Bezdin does not. There should be an X on this because this is not true. This is a potential drush we can make. This is the same Kal V'chomer, right? This is the same Kal V'chomer, but this doesn't work, right? Why? Because Bezdin does not kill on Shabbos, right? So just because something is Docha Avoda, right, doesn't mean there's Docha Shabbos, right? So over here, that proves that this clearly we don't do, right? Misas Bezdin is not Docha Shabbos. That's what we were just talking about. We don't kill people on Shabbos. So that proves that just because you're Docha Avoda, which is Docha Shabbos, doesn't mean that you, Misas Bezdin, can Docha Shabbos, right? This doesn't work. The proof is from here, right? Right. Because the fact that you're Menatzeach Avoda doesn't mean you beat Shabbos, even though Avoda beats Shabbos. Now, so we're saying what's wrong with Taka with this Kal V'chomer. So we're saying we have a pasuk of Moshavos, right? Which is a big argument. Why does the pasuk talk about burning fire? Close to Varu'esh, one of the 39 malachos. So one shot is that don't do Misas Bezdin on Shabbos. That's coming to say don't do Misas Bezdin on the Shabbos. Now bias is the other way. Now that Misas Bezdin is not Docha Shabbos, right? Shabbos beats Misas Bezdin. That's the pasuk we just brought. So then Avoda should push off Misas Bezdin, meaning that Bezdin is not allowed to take someone for the Avoda, right? We just established this middle box over here, that Bezdin does not kill someone on Shabbos because of pasuk on Shabbos. So from the same extension, that means Avoda should beat Misas Bezdin, which means that if a guy is doing the Avoda, Bezdin cannot pull him away to kill him. Right? That's what should be, right? Now that we established this middle thing is true, that Shabbos beats Misas Bezdin, Bezdin does not kill on Shabbos, which is where we started out from. But we know that's true now. So then Avoda should beat Misas Bezdin. And the question is, there was a puzzle, right? The question is the Beis Mikdash a sanctuary, right? So it seemed the puzzle, if you read the Torah, the puzzle says that the Beis Mikdash is not a sanctuary, meaning pull them away from Avodah to Mrs. Bezin. So what's that puzzle talking about? And where does Avodah beat Mrs. Bezin? So Abaya said it's talking about Korban Tzibur. By Korban Tzibur, we don't stop the Avodah from Mrs. Bezin. Korban Yachid, we do. All right. Now, what's the case of Me'im Mizbechiti Chanalamas that you do pull the guy away? And what case do you leave the guy in Avodah? You leave the guy in Avodah by Korban Tzibur. But Korban Yachid, you pull the guy away. Rava says Korban Yachid also, you don't pull him away from, but it's referring to a Korban Tamid. For some reason, Korban Tamid, then you do pull him away from. Fine. Daf Lam Vav. So here's more recent. This is yesterday's daf. We started Kate's from the biggest or the smallest on the side. I wrote that. Torah Gedul Makom Echad was only found in select people. Moshe, Rebbe, Rashi, Lo Sana Rav. You can't answer in front of in charge of you, someone who's bigger than you, and anyone may judge the must be the of Yichus. Fine, and we're talking about the last three cases now. And here they're sitting in the semicircle. Right, and this is a Torah Gedul Makom Echad, which we'll get to in a second. Fine, so Daf Lamed Vav, that's what we did. Well, I'm sorry, Olam Vav, right. Right. So we said most Moshe, Rebbe, Lomatzir, Torah Gedul Makom Echad. Right. So Moshe, Rebbe, and then Rav Ashi, we had Torah Gedula Makom Echad. Torah Gedula Makom Echad means Gedula is wealth, vast wealth. So the only people had is Moshe and Rebbe and Rav Ashi. And the Gemara goes through all these other people who it seems were very outstanding in both Torah and Gedula, and the Gemara says they weren't unique in their generation, right? There's Yeshua, but Allah was with them. It was Pinchas, but it was Canaan. Shaul was a big tzaddik, but there was Shmuel and David and Shlomo, etc. Chizkiah and Shevna, which is very interesting because Shevna, right? We learned about he had more Talmidim. He had 100. How many?
130. 130, 110.
130 and 110. So he had 130 and Chizkiah 110. So if you have 130 Talmidim, 130,000 Talmidim, and also from over here, it seems that he was big stuff. But I guess he had a bad end. He did have a bad end. Right. So, right. That's the story we read last week. Right. Where he, yeah. So, but the Gemara is saying he was the one who causes us not to say Chizkiah who was Torah Gedul Makom Echad. So that's interesting. Ravina.
Right.
Yeah, but he wasn't. He was just his partner. Yeah, I don't know. No, so many people do make the point that these three, that Moshe. Right, I hear that. Right, people make the point that all the Rebbe, Moshe, and Rav Ashi all, so to speak, published significant books.
Right.
You know, fine. I mean, Shmuel also wrote a lot in the Nevi'im, but whatever.
In today's words, they three went viral.
Right. Well, okay, I think Shmuel wrote a large portion of the Navi also, I think, but whatever, fine. He's on that list, fine. But he's not one of the three. Shalom Talmid is interesting that a person can teach his Talmud. You could teach someone the halacha, and then you say, okay, now you be a judge with me. So obviously he's going to say what you just taught him. Like, here, learn some kachim. I'm going to teach you a shiur and kachim. Now, after shiur, now you can be a judge about this kachim case. So the Gemara says the exception is Rav Kana Ravasi, that they needed the information. the halachos, but then they could think on their own, so to speak. Those they were good enough in Svar, even though they just heard a whole shiur, they didn't necessarily accept. They think on their own. Right, which is on their level, it's a very high thing to do. Fine. I call last week. Are fine. So now we have the Sanhedrin. The last daf today is daf. Here we go. Okay, the seating arrangement of Sanhedrin. When one exits, everyone slides down. I have that slide. It's very cool. And then we dash in the pasuk. I feel very conscious about even the people who look like they're empty still are full of mitzvahs like pomegranate. That's part of our speech to the Edom to scare them is that everything's significant. And the incident of Shimon Shetach discovering the apparent murderer, which he couldn't do anything about because he didn't see the murder. He just saw circumstantial evidence before and after. So that wasn't so good. Here's the seating of Sanhedrin. So here they are, 23 if you count them. And here's 3 rows of 23. Say in front of them, one guy leaves. And they move over. This guy moves. Then everyone slides down. This guy takes a walk. And he is now Zanov L'Shualim. Instead of, he's Zanov L'Arayas instead of Rosh Shualim. And then a new guy came off. A new guy joined in the back bench over there. Right. Right. That's it. Right. So that's basically this. And the other part of the main part of this mission, it's a famous mission. This is how we scare the Edom. We tell them, don't say don't say something you just thought, but you're not certain about. We're going to give you shakiras, better watch out. And dams are also fleeable. If you kill this guy, it's not just him. There's a lot of all his generations you're going to kill. Fine. And then we have the story, like we said, of Shimon Shetach, where he saw the circumstantial evidence. And he saw the guy coming out, and it looked like he killed him. So Shimon Shetach, I guess he wasn't afraid of him. He said, "Look, I can't do anything to you, but I know what you did." And a snake bit him right away, and that's that. Okay.